Kenneth Peavy, also known as KP, was a reputable member from the Rollin Crips, specifically the Block Crips, a notorious street gang in Los Angeles with multiple other violent gangs on their list of top rivals, including gangs like the Hoovers and the Atra Gangster Crips. In 2015, tensions between the Hundreds and their rivals were the highest they had ever been in that decade, with frequent fights among the groups, shootouts, and they kept dissing each other through tagging, online, and of course in person. But all this tension eventually graduated to an all-out war. That same year, on July 17th to be exact, KP was planning on meeting with some friends on the 1600 block of West 109th Street in Los Angeles, California.
Only about 10% of the world's population is left-handed, which makes southpaws relatively rare, and it could help to identify one of the shooters in an especially brutal, unsolved murder.
He comes into view and then out of view of the camera right here. And then following him, we see the first suspect, gun in hand, chasing him as well. Once the suspect is just out of view of the camera, you'll see some muzzle flashes from the gun. And then that suspect takes off running back down the driveway this way.
When he was ambushed by two Hoover members with pistols in hand, they chased him to the back of the house before firing at least 5 shots at him. Unfortunately, it was late, and KP wasn't discovered until the next day, where he was pronounced dead at the scene.
You also see a fourth, so we knew somebody's driving this BMW, and you see a fourth suspect on foot behind the BMW.
There was a lot of firepower and manpower used to kill Peavy.
You know, I think he kind of got caught up in a gang war, gang rivalry. We believe the suspects were from a rival gang looking for somebody in this area to shoot at.
His death, it hit a lot of members of the Hundreds hard. That's because he was loved in his community, being known as a stand-up, funny individual, a leader in his gang, with a lot of younger members looking up to him, and he allegedly put in a lot of work for the gang as well. Which is why his death put a lot of members of the Hundreds on edge, to the point to where war was the only thing on their mind. On top of that, somebody in a tweet put a map of the neighborhood where his death occurred and put Rollin Hundreds in front of the map. Then, somebody used that same map and put a title on top of it that said, 100 days, 100 nights of killing.
It's not unusual for emotions to run high during a funeral, but what many here are feeling today is fear. Circling the graves are police from 3 different agencies.
Seems like overkill, though, doesn't it?
No. The police are here to monitor a funeral for a guy named KP, who was murdered maybe about 2 weeks ago.
That shooting is said to have sparked a grisly challenge online between 2 rival gangs, a race to kill 100 people in the next 100 days.
And they put that out over Facebook, Instagram, they tweeted it, and before you know it, it went viral.
After that, stories started to circulate around the city about how members of the Hundreds were planning to kill 100 members of the Hoovers, other rivals, and anyone in the rivals' territories during that 100 days. It's alleged that the Hundreds were looking to kill anyone who were caught on the streets of Western and Normandy, which meant you were risking your life just by going to that area. And they stood on business. On the first day, they let the whole city know 100 days, 100 nights definitely wasn't a game. The first shooting, it occurred on Saturday, July 20th at around 4 p.m. at the intersection of 81st and Hoover. And it was up from there. A member of the Hundreds drove up to a man in his car and unloaded a round of bullets before speeding away. The victim, 47-year-old Anthony Alonzo Cudzer, was pronounced dead at the scene. 7 blocks away, and less than an hour after the first shooting, another man in his 40s was shot in his car at the intersection of 75th and Figueroa. The victim was able to drive himself to the hospital, but his assailant, they managed to get away. Also, a little after 9 p.m., authorities found a man in his 20s shot in his stomach at Hyde Park Boulevard and Bryanhurst Avenue and rushed him to a hospital. And about 30 minutes after that, a gunman shot 3 people who were walking down 47th Street and Budlone Avenue. less than 4 miles from the last shooting. The victims, 2 men and 1 woman, were all taken to a hospital in critical condition.
20 days into the 100 Days Challenge, there's been a handful of shootings. Here in the area formerly known as South Central LA, cruisers roll by more frequently.
People in this troubled neighborhood don't scare easily, but those I spoke with were terrified. Some now drive instead of walk, and others rarely go out at all.
And it's just scary because I could get hurt when I have nothing to do with anything.
Yeah, that was just the first day. And while the killings and shootings slowed down after the 100 days, the war between the Hoovers and the Hundreds only intensified between them. And today, we're about to address it all. And if you didn't know by now, today, we're addressing the Rollin Hundreds. This gang is known to be by far one of the most militant gangs to belong to the Rollin card. You know what? F that. This gang is known to be one of the most ruthless in the city, with several examples of them terrorizing their enemies, drive-bys, walk-down murders, and more than a few cold cases. So they definitely have a story to tell. Let me just warn you right now, this episode is going to be intense. It's definitely not for the faint-hearted. With that being said, yeah. All right. Welcome to Cali's Most Dangerous. Let's get into it. Chapter 1, Danger Rating for the Rollin Hundreds.
Who was you, nigga?
I'm not know. You got all that.
Take all that off, nigga. The sweater too. Yeah. Take it off, nigga. I need a new fit.
Put the cookie sweater I got.
Yeah. Shirt too. You was finna rob me, nigga?
I was not about to rob.
Take that shirt.
When I got up on you, I seen you. I'm like, oh, she black. Let me stand, let me stand down.
Come on, bro.
That's why
Where your money at? Where your money at?
I'm broke as
You broke as That's why you what?
My nigga, I was not trying to.
Back up, nigga. Back up.
Look, if I was some sneaky shit.
Back up. Back up, nigga. Back up. Put the bike down too.
The Rollin Hundreds are going to receive a danger rating of a 9.6 out of 10, based off of the gang's long history of terrorizing their enemies, multiple cases of walk-down murders, drive-bys, murder robberies, and a lot more other insane situations. Look, the 100 days, 100 nights situation only scratches the surface on how militant this gang can be. The amount of cases I found these guys is down there unrivaled by most of the gangs I've done so far. And that's only mostly related to their activities in these last 2 decades. It seems like these guys were headhunting at least weekly. But I can't fully justify this score without getting into some intense situations that played out with the Rollin Hundreds. Let's get into it.
Can I help my mommy, please?
At approximately 10 p.m. on a cold Christmas night in 2010, friends DeAndre Woods and Casimir James were talking in front of James' car with James' 3-year-old daughter inside the car, in front of Woods' house on 85th Street and Western Avenue in Los Angeles, California. While talking, Woods noticed a 4-door Chevrolet Tahoe with tinted windows driving on the street slowed down as it passed him and James. Woods, he had his back to the streets, and James, she was facing the street. Woods took notice because the area was dangerous and violent, since it was part of the territory of the Atra Gangster Crips. About 30 seconds later, Woods went to hug James and saw a spark. Then heard James scream as she fell on Woods, knocking him down as well. Woods saw a man with a gun jogging towards him, so he got up and ran. And while running, he heard several gunshots. In the midst of the shooting, he slipped and fell on the wet ground and dislocated his shoulder as he saw the gunman running towards Western Avenue. Woods, he wasn't hit by any bullets, but James, she was shot several times.
Prosecutor says that Darnell Houston was the shooter, Lamar McKnight, the getaway man. Both are accused in the murder of an innocent mother, 25-year-old Casimir James. Of all times, on a Christmas night, the shocking case made headlines 5 years ago. Heart-wrenching when it was learned that James' 3-year-old daughter was right there.
At the time of the shooting, Derek Jefferson was walking in the area and heard gunshots. That's when he saw a man pointing a gun at a woman and jumped into some nearby bushes for cover. He saw a dark blue 4-door Tahoe with windows tinted and 24-inch chrome rims. And he could see 2 black men inside the Tahoe, was left the scene quickly with the engine revving. Jefferson saw a woman on the ground and later ran to her. He could see that she was shot in the head. The woman, who couldn't speak, gestured towards the car. That's when Jefferson, he noticed a little girl inside the car. He grabbed the girl and took her to a woman who lived in a nearby home. And when he returned to James, sadly, she was already dead. Jefferson, he was accustomed to gang warfare in the area, but when he saw the injured woman, he felt it went too far. James, she died from gunshot wounds to her head and neck, and had gunshot wounds on her legs consistent with trajectories indicating that she had already fallen when her legs were hit.
How a child talks to a missing mom.
I say to her that for Christmas, I'll make you a present. For Thanksgiving, I'll say, I'll make you a present. For your birthday, I'll make you a present. And for Halloween, I'll make you a present.
Police recovered 13 spent shell casings at the murder scene, all of which were fired from the same gun. They also obtained surveillance video from a nearby gas station depicting either a blue Chevy Tahoe or a blue GMC Yukon with rims traveling southbound on Western Boulevard at the time of the shooting. Fast forward to a few weeks after the shooting. In January of 2011, police located a vehicle matching Jefferson's description parked in front of a residence at 110th and Hobart Street, in the same direction that the SUV had fled. It was a blue GMC Yukon, registered to Lamar McKnight, a known Rollin hunting member. The SUV, it was subsequently repossessed on June of 2011. And there were no rims on the SUV at the time of the repossession. But 24 was written on the SUV, suggesting that it once had 24-inch rims. When the police searched McKnight's residence in August of 2011, they recovered 4 rims in a garage that matched Jefferson's description and a surveillance video. Police also searched Womb's house and found a notebook entitled Young Husta in a drawer. They also discovered a drawing on the underside of a bunk bed in his bedroom, showing a woman with her eyes crossed out and an X over her body, and 3 lines next to her. After Darnell Deshaun Houston, another Rollin Hunters member, and McKnight were arrested, the Los Angeles Police Department detectives in charge of the case arranged for a confidential informant known as Witness X to share cells with Houston and McKnight. Witness X had performed approximately 200 similar operations and received close to $70,000 over the years for his services. He belonged to a neighborhood Crips gang and recognized Houston because they had been in prison together in 1995 or 96. He knew Houston as Lil Pan from the 111 neighborhood Crips. And Witness X secretly recorded his conversation with Houston. Houston told Witness X that he was involved in the Western murder and admitted that he was the gunman. He also listed the gang monikers of 4 others who were involved. Bar, who was McKnight, Baby Beefy, who was Derek Williams, Elope, who was Simon, and Mr., who was Marvell Parker. Houston told Witness X that the younger gang members were not doing enough work for the gang and that he was training them. On the same night of the murder, Houston took young members on an earlier mission outside of a church, and one of the youngsters fired 17 shots from a 9mm handgun at 7 rivals, missing all of them though, before the crew returned to the gang hangout and rearmed. McKnight, he then drove the SUV to the scene of the crime. Houston demonstrated how Woods moved James around, using her as a body shield as she was repeatedly shot. Also saying he didn't feel bad that James was killed because she was a, quote, tramp associate. Tramp is a disrespectful reference to members of the Atra Gangster. In addition, Houston said he had dismantled the gun and chucked it into the ocean. So he didn't believe the police had anything on him other than hearsay. But he did mention that he had been politicking or arguing before the shooting and thought that someone had overheard the argument and was snitching on him. He was worried that Williams might be the one who was talking to the police and felt that he might have to kill Williams, saying, "I'm gonna have to down that nigga Baby Beefy." Simon was 16 years old and Markel Parker was 17 years old at the time of the murder. When McKnight talked to the informant, he mumbled and used pig Latin because he was leery of the camera and intercom inside the cell. McKnight told the informant that a gun was involved in the crime and he got rid of it. He also believed that the police couldn't tie him to the 111 neighborhood Crips because he didn't have any tattoos. And lastly, mentioning that he believed the younger gang member was snitching on him. A detective opined that the men were gang members of the 111 neighborhood Crips. He explained that putting in work in a gang context means committing or assisting in commission of crimes. A gang member gains respect by putting in work. Also saying murder is the pinnacle of status achievement, the biggest thing you can do. Saying that the crime was committed for the benefit of the gang because the willingness to drive 30 blocks to enter a rival's territory to commit murder on a Christmas night demonstrates that the 111 neighborhood Crips are crazy and instills fear and sends a message to their rivals that they shouldn't mess with the gang. He explained that the shooter or the older member would take advantage of a teachable moment with the young gangsters by showing them how a successful murder mission was carried out. It was also his opinion that the 3 lines underneath Williams' top bunk bed were not meant to represent the 111 neighborhood Crips, because that isn't how the gang depicts his name in writing. Rather, he believed the scratches were hash marks, representing personal accounts of what Williams had done. Notch marks for killings. Also, another factor that put the 111 neighborhood Crips in a bigger hole was Tony Johnson.
The defense counters, asserting the prosecution's key witnesses are former criminals with motives to testify. Tony Johnson, a fellow gang member who police had arrested for meth while on probation.
He lied, he begged, he stole, all along the way, and you'll hear as the story got there.
Johnson was a member of the 111 neighborhood Crips in 2010. He spoke to the police several times about the shooting in exchange for leniency after his various arrests. At trial, he testified that around 9 p.m. on December 25th in 2010, he was at Simon's house on St. Andrews on 111th Street, which was a gang hangout. He was talking to Houston when McKnight pulled up in a blue Yukon. Houston and McKnight began smoking marijuana and argued over who would pay for it. In the discussion, it quickly turned heated, but Houston complained that McKnight was not putting in any work for the gang. McKnight responded, "We can go to the traps right now." Johnson understood that McKnight was suggesting that they go to the territory of their rivals and shoot him. Johnson then saw Simon get out of the front passenger seat of the Yukon and get into the back seat. Houston got into the front passenger seat and McKnight drove off. And after that, Johnson went home. 3 days later, Johnson was with McKnight at Simon's house. McKnight told Johnson that they had driven past a man and a woman standing at a car talking, then turned around and pulled up next to him. Houston jumped out of the car and started shooting with a 9mm gun. He says the man started running, saying he was worried that his truck might have been caught on videotape. Hoping to better the situation, Johnson told police where to find the SUV. In the end, through the surveillance evidence, the information received from the paid informant, witness statements, and statements from fellow gang members, the jury found Derek Williams, Darnell Deshaun Houston, and Lamar McKnight guilty of murder, with Houston and McKnight being sentenced to life without the possibility of parole, plus 25 years for the gun enhancement, and Williams being sentenced to 25 years to life, plus another 25 for the gun enhancement.
And why have you not said you're sorry for taking my mommy away from me? My mommy was the love of my life. I remember that night and it scares me. You are supposed to love people, not hurt and kill them. What you did was mean. You are mean, evil people.
Man, this one was intense. Rest in peace to Kashmir James. But truthfully, that's the nature of this game. Ruthless. To be frank, this situation is only one of many cases that the Rollin Hunters are known for. And as we go over who the Rollin Hunters are, you'll see how militant this gang is for itself. Chapter 2. Who were the Rollin Hundreds? The Rollin 100 Crips consist of several individual African-American subsets of the Crips, primarily on the west side of South Central Los Angeles, California. When it comes to other races, they're definitely known to put them on as well.
Let's go up in this. I don't heard. Make bud. Alright, man. Tell the families I said you know? Tell blood I said blood, you know? Tell blood. Slide bashing with a passion, you know?
In addition, the Rollin Hundreds move with the Rollin O's and a neighborhood car. Some of the sets claim NAC, like the Hard Times, the 111s, and the 115s. But once these gangs hit jail or the pen, it's neighborhood period, with each of the cliques politicking and rolling with the neighborhood car when it comes to wars and beef. As you should know by now, the Rollin Hundreds history isn't just based off of one foundation, but based off of several. The original Block Crips are a predominantly African-American street gang located in an unincorporated section of Los Angeles County, known as Athens. Their turf lays between east of Normandy, west of Western Avenue, from north of 107th Street to south of Imperial Highway. Yeah, and if you're not a block nigga, don't come to the block nigga. They cool with the locals, but with their enemies, they know to drop niggas. Bars, nigga. Nah, being one of the oldest Crip sets in Los Angeles, the Block Crips are the original block gang. And as you're gonna see a little later, they have a lot of history attached to their name. In addition, it's the Underground Crips, who are predominantly an African-American street gang located on the west side of South Central Los Angeles between Budlong and Western Avenue, from 103rd to 108th Street. And this section of the Hundreds is known for a lot around the city and have been in the headlines for a lot of insane situations, including one that played out in 2005. On September 1st of 2005, there was a dice game going on in the driveway of Johnny Stringer's house, with up to 20 men playing and observing, including Deron Marshall, Keith Perry, Dante Liggins, Christopher Combs, Andre Pomos, and John Kennedy. With estimates of money on the ground during the game that varied from $400 to $2,000. At some point in the dice game, Makita Christian, a Rollin 100 member, arrived and greeted everyone. And about 10 minutes later, Marshall heard Christian ask, "Is anybody strapped?" Liggins also heard him say, "It's a lot of money out here. Where y'all burners at?" Stringer told Christian there was no need for anyone to be strapped because they were in front of his house as they continued playing dice. Sometime after Christian left, Marshall and Pomos saw an individual walk past the driveway and looked. He then cut across the grass on a diagonal. The young man had a bag in his left hand and his right hand was in his pocket. And once close enough, he says, "You niggas need to break yourselves. Give up all the bread now." Which meant he was going to rob the man. Immediately, everybody stood up. Stringer stepped off the wall where he was standing next to Marshall and said, "Who is you?" But without responding, the individual took his hand out of his pocket and showed everyone he had a gun. And a few seconds after that, started to shoot at the men as they ran away. Marshall and Stringer were running in the same group, along with Liggins and Pomos and another man. They climbed over a fence as the individual was firing. Marshall made it to the rear brick wall and climbed over, but Perry and Kennedy were both hit by gunfire. Stringer was also hit by 3 bullets. One bullet pierced his heart and both lungs, unfortunately causing his death. Marshall believed that there were 7 men present at the time of the shooting, also saying the shooter fired his gun in a spraying motion, moving his hand from left to right with his arm outstretched. The gun appeared to be a black and chrome Glock 9mm handgun, with police finding at least 6 shell cases at the scene. Nikita Jackson was a friend of Stringer's and used to date Christian. Shortly after Stringer was killed, Jackson found Christian waiting for her when she arrived at home that night. He told her that he needed to talk to her, but she had to promise that she wouldn't flip out. That's when he pulled out a gun and told her it was the same gun that killed Stringer. Christian told Jackson that he had visited Stringer's house and asked him why they were playing for big money with no burner. He said Stringer sat there in front of his house and didn't need a burner. Christian then said he went on 105th Street and asked if anyone wanted to hit up a dice game, meaning if they wanted to rob the individuals. No one wanted to hit up Stringer except for one young dude. The young man rode with Christian, who parked on the street behind Stringer's house. Christian gave the young man a gun and a plastic bag and told him not to shoot because they don't have a gun. But still, Christian heard gunshots after and then seen the boy running back to the car. He then drops him off on 105th Street. That young man was Davion McDowell, a Rollin Hunter member. Jackson, she didn't tell anyone what Christian said because she was afraid of getting hurt. Eventually, she did tell Pomels, but he didn't tell anyone. But 6 to 8 months after the shooting, Pomels, he gave her Detective Theodore Hammond's telephone number and she called the detective. His investigation determined the identities of the individuals involved in Stringer's murder in January 2006. Deputy Sheriff Ryan Libb testified as a gang expert. He described the relationship of the Black Crips to the Rollin Hundreds gang. He said there were several other gangs under the Rollin Hundreds umbrella, including the Underground Crips. Christian was a member of the Black Crips, and Davion McDowell was a member of the Underground Crips. Deputies believed that both the Underground Crips and the Black Crips would benefit from the crime. Ultimately, the trial court found Christian and McDowell guilty of the murders, and they were sentenced to life without the possibility of parole, plus another 25 years to life for the firearm enhancement. Yeah, rest in peace to all parties involved. To get killed over a dice game is insane. But then again, we're talking about the Rollin Hundreds. When it comes to this section of the hundreds, the undergrounds, they definitely don't have the headlines from the 80s and 90s, the celebs, all the numbers that the 60s always had, but they've always been known to have a number of frontliners for the neighborhoods versus the Hoover's War, and arguably have had more intense gang warfare with the Inglewood families than the Rollin 60s, at least in the last 10 years, taking out several of their members despite being 1/10 of the 60 size. Yeah, despite being about 150 to 200 members deep, they have a ton of ballers in their hood and the funds to constantly stay at war with the enemies and minimize losses. This is because most of the families in their section are from the same socioeconomic background as the 60s, as well as having middle class and even wealthy members.
20 suspects all working together, hitting Nordstrom's at the Grove at 10:40 last night. They used sledgehammers and it appears even a scooter to break out the large storefront window, then swarmed the store, and just like that, they took off, stolen merchandise in hand. When police arrived, at least 4 cars took off, and that's when the pursuit was on. LAPD patrol officers and an air unit following one of the cars, who was at times was reportedly doing 90 miles an hour and driving the wrong way against traffic. Now, the driver and 2 other passengers dumped the car near 97th and Hoover and made a run for it, but both were caught by the LAPD.
In addition, it's the Atra Gangster Crips, who are a small African-American criminal street gang located on the west side in the neighborhood of Athens in Los Angeles, California. The territory, it sits directly on 102nd Street and Budlong Avenue, between Vermont and Normandy Avenue. And don't let that Gangster Crip name fool you, because the Budlong Gangster Crips claim the Deuce card. And we have the 111 and the 115 neighborhood Crips, who are 2 predominantly African-American street gangs, partially located in the city of Hawthorne in unincorporated Los Angeles County. In addition, technically, the Rollin Hundreds also includes the Watergates and the Raymond Crips, even though they aren't as tight as they used to be. And lastly, there's a deadly clique of the hundreds called the Blue Flame Gang that mostly composed of members from this generation of gangbanging. And most of these cliques are known to be completely with the functions, and they're known for having a lot of money. Similar to the 60s Overhills and Avenues cliques, the majority of their turf is relatively middle class, and some even rich. That's because a lot of the members come from a hustler's background, and they engage in various criminal activities, including drug trafficking, extortion, walk-down murders, and a lot of other violence. But one situation in 2015 making headlines around not only the city, but around the nation, and included a prominent rapper who is unfortunately no longer with us.
Shots were fired at a birthday party in Carson. 3 men were hit and one of them has now died. The shooting happened just before midnight in the 100 block of West Victoria Street. The shootout was just in front of the building that housed the party. Deputies say as many as 100 people were attending what they describe as a pay-for-entry adult-themed party.
In 2015, Davion Irvin became part of a group of rappers who called themselves Too Gritty Family, also known as the Stink Team. Irvin used the game moniker Solo. He discovered the group after he became familiar with Darnell Caldwell, who was a popular underground rapper known as Draco the Ruler. Too Gritty had about 20 to 30 members, but Irvin was a part of the group, and the members belonged to several different Crip gangs. Buchanan was a member of the Rollin Hundreds and went by the moniker CALI'S, who was also a member of Too Gritty and close friends of Daryl Caldwell. Vontaaay Caldwell, Daryl's brother, was a member of Too Gritty and went by the moniker Ralphie the Plug. Joshua Torres was a member of Too Gritty, and he was known as Too Shitty. Jaden Boyd, who was younger than most of the Too Gritty members, started hanging out with Too Gritty members in the summer of 2016. He was a member of the neighborhood Rollin 40 Crips and used the moniker AB. Too Gritty members were flockers, which is a term for a burglary crew. They were also known as the Stink Team. Stink is a derogatory term for Asians. Too Gritty members had a hand sign, handshake, and had Asian and money-themed tattoos. On top of that, Too Gritty damn near moved as a gang themselves, having issues with people in several different blood gangs. In December of 2016, Draco had a rivalry with RJ, a member of the Athens Park Bloods, who was also a popular rapper. They often disagreed about who was the better rapper and agreed to fight at one point, though the fight never occurred. But on December 10th of 2016, Irvin went to a pajama party in Carson with Buchanan and approximately 10 other Too Gritty members. They caravaned to the party in 4 or 5 cars. Draco drove Irvin and Buchanan to the party. Irvin sat in the front passenger seat, Buchanan sat in the back passenger seat, and Boyd joined the group in a separate car as they were leaving. The group pulled into the parking lot at the party, but did not go inside. And they were sitting in their vehicle when a group of 6 males walked past quickly. Irvin recognized one of the males as Gregory, a Red Bull, from the Inglewood Family Gangster Bloods. And the Inglewood Family Gangsters, they were huge rivals of Boyd's gang, the neighborhood Rollin 40 Crips. The other males with Red Bull were Travis Harvey Broom, Quentin Polk, Terrence Harvey, D. Lawhorn, and Kimani Rich. Well, just as the group reached the front of Draco's car, Irvin heard gunfire and dug down. And when Irvin looked up, there was a lot of commotion, with people running as the gunfire was going on. Irvin thought they were under attack from the Blood Gang, but he looked up and saw Buchanan holding a 40 caliber Glock pistol. Buchanan said, "I emptied the whole clip on that nigga." And Boy was standing outside of his vehicle and still shooting a 38 caliber revolver. When the shooting stopped, most of the men drove to Draco's house. When they arrived, nobody knew if anybody had been hit by gunfire. Irvin went to sleep, but Torres woke him up at about 3 a.m. and told Irvin that Red Bull had been killed. After the shooting, Irvin saw Buchanan in the video on social media. He was drinking and said he was sipping on some dead bull. On another occasion, Irvin heard Buchanan imply that anyone who spoke about the shootings would be killed. When Buchanan and Irvin were in jail together, Buchanan told Irvin, "If you basically don't say nothing, we're gonna be okay." And at first, they were good. But after Boy was arrested, Detective Hardiman placed him in a cell with a confidential informant and recorded their conversation. Boy told the informant that he was from Rollin 40s and known as Arlington Blue or AB, and had been caught on video smoking somebody. He said he was, quote, "with a gang of niggas that's in jail right now." Boy thought someone was snitching on him because of how many people were arrested, and the police accused him of shooting with Buchanan, who was in fact the other shooter. He said, "We wasn't really going on a mission. It's just when we got there, we was there for a nigga from Athens. But in the parking lot, I seen a nigga I was beefing with from Inglewood. He agreed with the informant's statement that the victim was at the wrong place at the wrong time and fell in their glove. Boyd also said he used a .38 caliber revolver, which would not leave any shells behind. He said the other shooter cracked off with a 40 or something. He also told the informant that no one got caught with the gun afterwards. Draco the Ruler, he had a very distinctive car that witnesses probably recognized at the scene. So the police, they raided his house. They found several guns, but not the ones used in the shootings. On top of that, Boyd told the informant, I popped cuz, and then he was limping out of the patty. And I went to the car with the blower, but you can't see none of this on video because how I moved my car. The informant, he then asked whether Boyd shot the victim in the head, and Boyd replied, I shot the nigga at least 2 times. He might have got shot in the head though. I don't know. He also said, on hood, me and Kel's the last 2 niggas the police got. They got everybody else, and they got us 2 last. That's why I know they got something. He and a confidential informant speculated as to who the snitch might be. Also, during the investigation, the detectives found a video filmed about 2 months before the shooting, showing Buchanan pointing a pistol. The serial number was also visible on the video, with Draco the Ruler and Ralphie the Plug appearing in the video with Buchanan. And about a month after the shooting, another video showed Buchanan holding a .40 caliber Glock pistol. Printed words on the video indicated a member of Inglewood Family Gangster Bloods had been killed. Someone in the video mentioned Red Bull. Lastly, detectives identified Irvin as someone present at the shootings through surveillance camera footage. Irvin agreed to cooperate in exchange for a reduced sentence on other charges against him. To test the truth of Irvin's information concerning the December 10th, 2016 shooting, Detective Hardiman asked him to provide information on other shootings, and Irvin did so, giving the detective information regarding 7 different shooting incidents. In the end, due to numerous witness statements, ballistics evidence, and statements from fellow gang members, Buchanan, he was sentenced to life without the possibility of parole, plus a consecutive term of 135 years to life. Man, that story was a wild one, and it honestly gives me a lot of insight as to why Draco the Ruler was so hated in certain parts of Los Angeles. Rest in peace to Red Bull and Draco the Ruler. Even though they died in 2 completely different situations, both got caught in the middle of deadly warfare and unfortunately took both of their lives. History of the Rollin Crips.
He's typical of our caseload. We handle gang members as victims one day and suspects the next day.
I was coming on from Gardena. Me and my girlfriend got on the bus. Next thing you know, this dude put out a gun and put it to my head.
How many times you get shot?
5.
If he gangbanging, get him too. I had him locked up one time.
What's gonna make a difference?
I guess just get out the neighborhood. I mean, but you leave one neighborhood and you go to the next neighborhood and it's the same thing. It's the same thing all over.
The Rollin Crips history is the best way I can describe it. Bruh, it's all over the fucking place. Because this gang, or loose alliances of gangs, have different dates of formation and even politics. Let's start off with the original Black Crips, which have cliques that include 107th, 110th, and 113th Street. And the goons on this street is known to pack heat. I tell the ops to give you some stories, but they probably deceased. Bars, nigga. The Black Crips are among the first Crip gangs to splinter off from the West Side Crips around 1973, when Melvin Harvey formed his new identity. The Underground Crips and the Neighborhood Block Crips were among the first gangs to break away from the West Side Crip identity around that same time, which are a group of a loose affiliation of other Crip gangs known as the Rollin Hundreds that formed in jail during the 1980s. And they include a range of different hundred gangs, like the previously mentioned, and a few more. Where most people refer to the hundreds, they're referring to the blocks and the undergrounds, because these 2 gangs, along with the Raymonds, are known to be the most militant and active. That's because the UGs and the blocks have always had young riders, and it's not a gang where you could blend in without being active. When it comes to the undergrounds, like I already mentioned, They were one of the first gangs to splinter off from the West Side Crips, which approximately occurred in 1973. Monkey Man, original West Side Crip from the Hundreds faction, and Gary Newman, also known as OG Leprechaun, are considered the founders of the underground Crips as the movement for specific neighborhood identity grew from the early 1970s. The original founders often spent time in the basement of a house off Western and 104th Street called the Underground House, hence the name Underground. It's also alleged that the gang was likely named after Curtis Mayfield's 1971 The Underground, off the Roots album. 3 of the Underground Crips cliques are 103rd, 105th, and 107th Street. And also in recent years, they added 106th Street as a 4th clique of the Underground. When it comes to logos, the UGs have adapted the logo of the Coats as a cultural identifier of their neighborhood. In terms of street politics, the UGs, they're one of the most intriguing sets of any other Crip gang. Small, but always known to have big money guys and shooters. Also, there's a clique called Blue Flame, and these guys are a group of younger generation Rollin 100 members that are notoriously known for being some of the most ruthless around. With the gang allegedly been responsible for 10 plus bodies over the last few years. But I couldn't find which particular gang out of the hundreds they came from. So if there's anyone tapped in, y'all let me know in the comments. Either way, I'd advise you not to test the Blue Flame gang. These guys is killers. From small guns to AKs, they know to let it bang. And last but not least is the 111s and the 115 neighborhood Crips, located in South Central Los Angeles, west of Western Avenue off 111th Street, which was founded in around 1974 or 1975, and are among the oldest Crip gangs on the west side of Los Angeles. Other gangs include the Budlong Gangster Crips, the 105 Gangster Crips, the Hard Time Hustler Crips, the Raymond Avenue Crips, and the Watergate Crips. And together, they formed the Rollin 100's Crips, which really came together in the LA County Jail Module 4700 in around 1986. And from the jump, they were known for going at it with their rivals, which is why they have a long list of them.
Nigga, you's a bitch, nigga, dead homies, nigga. All that, nigga, like I said, Snoopers, dead homies, you's a bitch. You ain't trying to squabble.
Allies and rivals of the Rollin 100s. The Rollin 100 Crips are allies of all neighborhood gangs, East Coast Crips, and the East Side Hustler Crips, as well as the Tongan Crip gang located in Inglewood, California. But when it comes to rivals of the Rollin 100s, it gets a little tricky because the Rollin 100s, they're composed of different gangs that sometimes go by their own politics. Some of the gangs, they support each other and beef hard with their rivals, and some don't get involved with the other cliques' issues or gang wars. But for the most part, all Rollin 100 sets are rivals of the Hoover Criminals, specifically the 107 Hoover Criminals, along with the 99 Mafia Crips, the 116 Kitchen Crips, the Atra Gangster Crips, the Gardena Shotgun Crips, the Gardena Payback Crips, and most other Gangster Crip sets. The Rollin 100s are also rivals of the Inglewood Family Gangster Bloods, the Avenue Paru Gang, the Black P Stones, Bounty Hunter Watts, Centinela Park Family Bloods, and the Crenshaw Mafia Bloods. And all of the Rollin 100 Crips have traditionally been enemies of the LA Denver Lane Bloods. They're currently engaged in a ceasefire so that they can collectively concentrate their efforts on the Hoover Criminals. And like I already mentioned, each individual gang under the Rollin 100s don't necessarily share the same enemies or involve themselves with each other's conflicts. And on top of that, sometimes the gangs are even known to have internal beefs and issues with each other. For example, recently, cliques of the Black Crips and the 111 Crips have been in several feuds with each other, and this can be traced back to the 1980s due to their need for power in their neighborhood.
Alright, nigga, S-Gang, we got that out West 5 block, nigga. One day, daddy, everybody, nigga.
And although internal issues aren't as bad with the Rollin 60s, they still happen in the Rollin 100s as well. But honestly, none of these situations come close to the rivalry they have with another ruthless gang in the city. On May 11th of 2007, Matthew Warren was in an area of 80th Street and St. Andrews, where his grandfather lived. Warren was sitting in the front passenger seat of a Ford Explorer when he saw a black Suburban pass by a couple times, which made him nervous. The Suburban then stopped behind a dumpster 2 to 4 feet away from the Explorer, with its back end closer to the back of the Explorer. There were 4 people inside the Suburban. Warren then saw an African-American male get out of the driver's seat of the Suburban. He then saw Devlin S. Davis, a Rollin 100 gang member, wearing gloves as he ran and grabbed something in his pants. Davis then extended his arm straight out from his body, holding a .38 caliber revolver, pointed and fired 3 times. He then said something like, "LA Crip," then returned to the Suburban. He says he saw 18-year-old Brian Tonelli get shot as Tonelli was walking across the street. Warren runs inside his grandfather's house to tell him to call 911. When he returned to Tonelli, he applied pressure to Tonelli's room. Tonelli said he was tired and wanted to go to sleep. Warren was afraid because the shooter's gun was a .38 caliber with 6 shots, and only 3 shots were fired. He made eye contact with the shooter and saw his eyes were reddish and real low, suggesting that the shooter was high or nervous. Warren identified Davis as a shooter in a 6-pack photographic lineup as an almost positive match. Ariel Walker, Tonell's girlfriend, had been with Tonell shortly before the shooting when she heard shots. She ran to the corner of St. Andrews and saw Tonell on the ground. Tonell always wore a hat, and when Walker saw the hat on the ground, she realized Tonell had been shot in the head. Walker took the hat with her and ran to Tonell's house. As Walker approached the house, she saw Wallace Tonell, Tonell's father, a detective with the Los Angeles Police Department. Walter Lee Bridges was walking down the street with Tonell when Tonell got shot. Bridges heard someone say "hey" and turned around and started walking backwards because he saw the guy had a gun. The gunman approached quickly and fired, and as Bridges ran, he heard 4 to 5 shots and saw a flash. Bridges described the shooter as African American, but did not see the shooter's face clearly enough to identify the shooter. Tonell habitually wore a Houston Astros baseball cap. The cap was one of the logos of the Atra Hoover criminals. And the shooting occurred in the heart of territory claimed by the Atra Gangster Crips. The Black Crips was a rival of the Atra Hoovers and the Atra Gangster Crips. Joshua Henry, who had known Tonell for 5 years, testified Tonell was not a member of a gang and knew nothing about what colors and clothing he couldn't wear. Even mentioning that when Tonell wore that hat, Henry told Tonell the hat was not appropriate to wear in certain areas because of gang connotations. Calvin Abbott also heard gunshots that night. He heard 4 to 5 gunshots. He dropped to the ground and got up and peeked over a gate and saw a young man leaning over a tree. The gate was about 230 feet from the SUV. After the shots were fired, a man ran towards a black SUV and got in the passenger seat before it sped off. He mentioned that the man had a gun in his hand, but did not see if the man had fired the gun. In the photo lineup, Abbott identified Davis as a suspect who ran back into the car. Sadly, Tonell died of a gunshot wound to the head. Ballistics tests revealed that the bullet fragments removed from Tonell's head during the autopsy and the bullet recovered from the crime scene had been fired from a weapon found in the possession of Lenore Langley. On July 11th of 2007, Langley was arrested for possession of a handgun. He didn't want to speak to law enforcement because he was afraid for his safety if he was labeled a snitch. But in a recorded interview, Langley told the police that the gun he had been arrested with had a murder on it. Langley said he had gotten the gun a week before he was arrested from No Brands, a member of the Black Crip. In the photo lineup, Langley identified Starks as No Brand. When Langley bought the gun from Starks for $50, he did not know it was hot. Langley once belonged to the Bounty Hunters blood gang, but he had been paralyzed in the shooting and no longer banged. In addition, he was concerned for his safety and the safety of his family. 4 days after the shooting, California Highway Patrol Officer Justin Burnhouse responded to a traffic incident on 11th and Harvard Avenue involving several vehicles. Burnhouse went into an alley where he saw a black Suburban with collision damage. He saw Starks getting out of the driver's seat of the car. Starks, who had an outstanding warrant for his arrest, admitted to driving the car. Jessica Midkiff, Starks' girlfriend, testified that she was present when the Suburban crashed. Midkiff started dating Starks in mid-2007. Starks was very controlling, and he let her know that if he didn't do what he asked, there would be consequences. On May 10th of 2007, Midkiff spent the night with Starks at the Desert Inn, a motel on Western and Imperial. The next day, Starks told her to drive to a location where two African-American males got into the car. Starks sat in the front passenger seat. Midkiff believed Davis sat behind her, and the other person sat in the back. As Midkiff drove, Davis gave her directions, but Starks told her not to listen. At Starks' direction, Midkiff headed towards downtown. And as they drove, Starks played some music. At Davis's request, one of the songs were played 3 to 4 times. Davis said it was his favorite song. He was acting really hyper and taunted the other rear passenger. As he said, "You never do any work." Starks told Midkiff to make a U-turn, so she did so and parked by a wall. The men in the back seat were wearing gloves, and Midkiff saw the butt of a black revolver, which Davis put into the front part of his pants, either in a waistband or pocket. After that, Davis and the other man got out of the car, went behind the car, and disappeared around a corner. Midkiff asked Starks what he had got her into, and he told her to shut up. Davis and the other man were gone for about a minute. Midkiff claimed she then heard 3 or 4 shots ring out. Starks then pulled her across him and got into the driver's seat. Davis and the other man soon returned back to the car, and Starks drove off, and then dropped the 2 men off. Before he was dropped off, Davis said, "I think I got somebody, but I don't know." And he was still hyper, saying, "I'm the man. I'm the motherfucking man," and appeared to be proud. Starks then told him to be quiet. Between May and December of 2007, Midkiff didn't contact the police out of fear. But after she was arrested, Midkiff identified Davis and Starks in a photographic lineup. And that same year, Vincent Jones was interviewed by police. He said the shooter was called Baby Man with the 11 Trey Block Crips. He said he often saw the shooter in the park with other gang members. He says one day Jones went up to the shooter and said, "What's up?" Jones brought up the shooting, but Baby Man denied it. Baby Man said, "Man, I'm finna go to jail." Jones, who knew Baby Man from school, said Baby Man was 17 or 18 years old, and his real name started with a D. In a recorded interview, Davis told the detectives that he was frightened and on ecstasy. Davis said he was picked up on 110th Street and got into a car with Jennifer and Starks, who was driving, and another person who Davis couldn't remember. When Davis entered the car, he told Starks he wanted to fight some hoovers. Davis was under the influence of drugs, so he listened to Starks while they rolled up to Normandy into what he thought was the Hoover's turf. The car pulled over, and Starks told Davis to get out as he handed him a chrome 38. Davis saw someone wearing a Houston hat, and Starks told him to do it. So Davis said he closed his eyes and started shooting in the air. He said he fired 3 shots, and it was the first time he used a gun. He said he wasn't trying to kill anyone and didn't see anyone fall. He says he saw people on the street in a black Expedition and felt bad and stupid afterwards. He's wearing gloves because Starks told him to put them on and didn't want to mess up his hands. He also told the detectives that he was a straight-A student, and when firing, he was not in his right mind. He only wanted to have friends and was trying to fit in. Also saying he didn't brag about the shooting and felt bad about it, since Starks called him a punk. He said he didn't know he hit anybody until the detectives told him he did. When Davis was in juvenile camp, someone told him that he had shot a police officer. Davis felt bad, and he knew he couldn't take it back. He said he never hurt anyone before and just wanted to be like. Now, he would never see his son born, never go home again, and would spend the rest of his life in jail. In addition, the detectives put a recording device in a cell with Davis and Starks and recorded their conversation. Davis called Starks' brain and asked if the bitch was talking. Starks responded, "These bitches always telling." The individual that the man referred to as bitch was later identified as Jessica. Davis told Starks, "You gotta get to that bitch, homie. You gotta get to her. That's our only way out, cuz." And Starks told Davis, "There wouldn't even be a case if you ain't say nothing." Davis responded, "I know, cuz." Starks said his plan was to get her statements kicked out. Davis said his plan was to say he was retarded and he couldn't read, but he's quoted saying, "The police know where I'm from, and they saw my tattoos, cuz." Once the trial started, Starks testified that he was out of town when the shootings took place. On rebuttal though, the general manager of the Desert Inn testified that there was a registration card with the number of Starks' driver's license, showing the check-in day of May 10th of 2007. And in the end, Davis was convicted and sentenced to 25 years to life for the murder. The Hoovers and the Rollin Hundreds have been going at it for years. And if 100 days and 100 nights wasn't an example of how much these gangs hate each other, hopefully this last one gave you a better idea. On top of that though, they have another gang who they have a deep hatred for. And this war, it's been going on since the 80s. Beef with the Atra Gangsters. When it comes to the war with the Atra Gangsters, it's based off of the politics of Los Angeles in general, and the cars that each gang affiliates with. In the early 1980s, the two gangs already had tension amongst each other, but once the war with the 60s and the Atra Gangsters really kicked off, it basically divided a lot of gangs in the city of Los Angeles. Most sets toes up between the two, with the neighborhoods choosing to roll with the neighborhood car. This did nothing but intensify the beef between the two, which eventually progressed to an all-out war between the two. And over the years, there have been several other deadly situations that played out between these two gangs, with the big one happening in 2017. At approximately 1 a.m. on October 15th of 2007, Keith Allen Walker and several other members of the Rollin Hunter neighborhood Crips were injured in a shooting incident which resulted in a car crash. Sometimes after 2 a.m., Walker calls a fellow Rollin Hunter member, Ravion Dumper, and told him Scott Hutchins, aka Baby Killer, had just been shot. Walker said he was in a car with Hutchins and other Rollin Hunter members when someone shot at the car. He then asked Dumper to meet him at the hospital. Dumper then met with Walker and Rollin Hunter's member Moore, also known as Lil Killshot, Christopher Willer, Maxwell, Cavante Gordon, Jesse Fuller, also known as Hank, and Uzi in the hospital parking lot. Fuller and Gordon, they ran the hood and were highly ranked members. Fuller told the group, "Baby Killer just got shot. Now we going back to the enemy's territory, the 8 trays, and we gonna catch a body." The group caravan to Steve-O's house in Rollin Hunter's territory to discuss what happened and what they planned on doing. The Atra Gangster Crips are the Rollin Hundreds' biggest rival. And the 8 trays, they claimed the area where the Rollin Hundreds were shot. Fuller told everybody, it's time to slide on the enemies, which meant they're about to go shoot at their rivals. It was decided that Walker and Moore were going to be the shooters. Fuller then designated Maxwell's black Audi A7 as the lead car, followed by Willer's burgundy Nissan Maxima and Damper's silver Honda Accord. Walker already had a gun on him, and Moore grabbed a neighborhood gun that was stashed in the alley. Fuller said they needed to pick up some females, so Damper picked up Lady Toon, Little Lady Flame, and brought them to Steve-O's house. After Damper returned, the cars left together, with Maxwell's car in the lead, then Willer's car, followed by Damper's vehicle. Lady Thump drove the black Audi, with Maxwell, Uzi, and Walker as passengers, with Walker in the back seat. Willer, Gordon, and Moore rode together in a red Nissan, with Willer driving and Moore in the back seat. Damper's silver Accord was a decoy car to distract police if they were pursued. The group thought the Gardena Payback Crips, or enemies of the Rollin Hundreds, might have been responsible for the shooting. They went to the Gardena Payback Crips territory first, but no one was outside. So Maxwell, with Lady Thump driving, led them to the Atra's territory. They then drove to 77th and St. Andrew's Place, where they saw 3 men smoking weed. Then they stopped the cars at the corner. It's time to put in work. 2 of the men were wearing royal blue, which signified that they were likely Atra Gangsters. Damper recognized 1 or 2 of the men from an incident that occurred at the county building on their hood day, which is October 10th. At the corner, Walker got out of the Audi and Moore got out of the Nissan, and they ran back towards the 3 men that the cars had driven past. Walker and Moore were running fast with guns in their hands. Damper lost sight of them, but he heard numerous shots about 6 seconds later. On the other side of the gun, Brandon Gray, Derek Jackson, and Walter Brown were walking on St. Andrew's Place between 77th Street and 78th Street in the Atra's territory at about 11 a.m. They were on a sidewalk in front of a house where 3 older men, including Stern, Benton, and Richard Skaggs, were sitting on chairs eating barbecue together. 2 or 3 cars that appeared to be following each other passed Gray, Jackson, and Brown, traveling north. Jackson could see the outlines of 3 heads in the middle car, which was a grayish color. The people in the middle car had their windows rolled down, and they were staring at Jackson and his friends before the cars turned east on the corner. Gray and Jackson followed the cars, but Brown stayed behind the sidewalk. As Gray and Jackson approached the corner, 2 men began running towards them. Jackson recognized one of the men as a passenger from the middle vehicle. Jackson said he knew what the men were coming for because he saw one of the men reach into his waistband for a gun. And right after that, both of the men yelled, "Fuck tramps!" and started shooting towards the group. Gray, Jackson, and Brown heard multiple shots and fled. As he was running, Jackson looked back and saw the man he had seen with the gun stop at the garage where the older men had been eating barbecue. Jackson then heard approximately 7 gunshots. Alvinus Neptune, Benton, Stern, Skaggs, and a man called Danny Boy were barbecuing when they heard gunshots and immediately ran to find a place to hide. Neptune saw 2 men run past, followed by another 2 men who were walking and shooting guns. The taller of the shooters shot at Stern twice. The other man shot Benton 5 times. Benton then raised his hand and said, "No, man. No, man," before the shooter shot him. Someone also shot Skaggs in the arm. And as they walked away, the taller shooter repeatedly banged his head and said, "Fuck the victims." Neptune believed the shooting was a hit because the shooters walked together, shot together, and then walked off like it was nothing. The shooters walked back to the corner and turned right on 77th Street. After the shooting stopped, Damper saw Walker and Moore run back and get into the cars before they drove away. The cars left in the same order they arrived and went back to Steve O's house. Both Benton and Stern died from multiple gunshot wounds. And on December 20th, after Walker, Moore, Willer, Maxwell, and Dump were charged in the case, Damper entered into a plea agreement with the prosecution. Damper pleaded guilty to 2 counts of voluntary manslaughter and was sentenced to 15 years in state prison. He testified for the prosecution in Walker's trial. Damper joined the Rollin Hundreds when he was 18 years old. Walker and Maxwell were also members of the Rollin Hundreds. Damper's gang moniker was T-Lo. He was given the name under Big T-Lo. Damper explained the moniker prefix indicates the members' place in the hierarchy: big, little, baby, tiny, and infant. In gang culture, if your big homie gets shot, you shoot for him. Walker's moniker was Infant Killer, under all the killers from big to tiny, including Baby Killer, which was Huskin's moniker. Moore, who was also known as Lil Killshot, was also under Huskin's, whose moniker was also Big Killshot. Maxwell's moniker was Baby Knuckles, or K3, and they all identified as Black Crip members. After the shooting, Damper heard Fuller say to Walker, "Oh, you niggas did some weird shit. You killed some old men." Walker replied, "Man, fuck them niggas. They live in the Tramp's hood anyways." Moore admitted to Damper that he shot the old man. He said, "Cuz, on Block Crip we did. Whoop-de-woo, nigga." Which meant, who gives a fuck? Moore said he saw Walker kill one of the men and then decided to shoot with him. Moore said, "Cuz, I did my shit on both of them," meaning he and Walker killed the two men. Maxwell asked Damper to drive behind him as a decoy so Maxwell could dispose of the gun. But Damper refused because he knew it was a murder weapon. Maxwell later told Damper he got rid of the gun at the Santa Monica Pier. Damper wasn't truthful with the detectives when he was first arrested, but spoke with his grandmother on the phone several times and decided to tell the truth. The detectives told Damper that they couldn't offer him anything at this time, but Damper, he decided to be honest. Damper had concerns about testifying because Walker had asked him not to testify and then threatened him and said he still had pull in the streets, saying, "I can get whatever done I needs to get done. Don't fuck with me." Also, on December 1st of 2017, Walker, who was detained in another matter, spoke with Hudson's in the reported jail cell. Walker told Hudson's, "I made it look good for you." Hudson's responded, "You made it look good for yourself, nigga." "What the fuck you mean you made it look good for me? I went to the hospital." Walker said, "Me and that nigga Moore, cuz. That nigga went up for you, you know?" Hudson said he knew. The call was then interrupted by an automatic operator advising him that the call was being monitored and recorded. Hudson then said, "You ain't even gotta talk about it over the thing, bro." Later, Hudson again warned Walker, "Like I said, you gotta watch what you doing and saying sometime. Man, your ass really over here talking in front of police about what happened and shit." Walker explained that he was angry about what happened. He then told Hudson's that a person named Gandisi told Fuller he wasn't giving him any guns that night. Hudson's again reminded Walker that the call was being monitored and recorded. On February 1st of 2018, when Walker was incarcerated in another matter, detectives questioned him about the shooting of the Rollin Hundreds at around 1:15 on October 15th of 2017. They then showed him a photo of Moore. In Walker's next phone call, he asked a person named Kiera to get in touch with Two-Face and told him to lay low. Walker said he didn't want to say the person's name because, quote, "They watch me right now, cuz. They just came and interviewed me and everything." In another jail call, Walker gave the person he was speaking to Moore's phone number. Investigators traced the number to an account opened by Moore on October 18th of 2017. In the end, through the witness statements, police interviews, gang member statements, jail call evidence, surveillance evidence, and honestly, a lot of other shit, the jury found Keith Allen Walker guilty of 2 counts of first-degree murder for the killings of Clifford Benton and Warner Stern. He was sentenced to a term of life without the possibility of parole, plus a consecutive term of 25 years to life for the firearm enhancement. Rest in peace to Clifford Benton and Warner Stern. These guys unfortunately lost their lives to the gangbanging. But that's just another example of how ruthless the Rollin Hundreds are. And trust, they have a long list of reputable members who are responsible for a lot of other violent activity. Prominent figures. The Rollin Hundreds are some of the oldest Crip gangs attached to their name. And this gang is known for being one of the most militant, feared, and hated in the city. Because of this, they've engaged in more than a few gang wars over the years and lost a lot of members. Some of them include Billy Shepard, also known as the $100 Bill, who actually had an interview on Street TV where he gave insight on how dangerous this area is. And unfortunately, he died 3 years after that interview. Also, it's OG Babyface, Tutu, William Lee Johnson, also known as OG Monkey Man, who died of a sudden heart attack, who was a founder of the Underground Crips and the original West Side Crips during the 1970s. In addition, it's also Troy, also known as Speedy Loke, who was shot and killed on 106 in a drive-by shooting. On top of that, it's Jeffrey Boyles, also known as Q-Ball, Bingo, Hitman, Gary Newman, also known as Stymie, Tall Can, Lil Drake, Lil Flame, Joker, Kenneth Peavy, also known as KP, who was the reputable member who was killed in Los Angeles with his death causing 100 days and 100 nights, In addition, it's also Cornell Snell, also known as E-Dub5, Big Ant, Big Black, Ant, Black Dog, Baby Brains, Big Bub, C-Rag, Dre, Ed Dog, Joe Dog, KK, Baby Maniac, Moon, Smoke, Mac McAuliffe, also known as T-Bone, Baby T-Bone, Baby Too Cool, Tootie, Baby Weasel, Rich Boy, Lil Flame, and Chucky. Definitely rest in peace to all them. Y'all let me know in the comments if any other members who are no longer with us, that their names live on. In addition, they've had more than a few reputable members who have made the gang feared and respected, along with making a lot of figures for the gang as well. A few of them include K-Bone, OGBD, Thump, Lady Thump, OG Big Sax, Big Pup, Big Whack, Big Chip, Popeye, Low, Baby Low, Beer Can, Pee Wee, Big Chop, Big Frog, Spooky Loco, OG Hawkeye, and No Talk. Lastly, they have more than a few rappers who are frankly some of the best coming out of Los Angeles right now. Some of them include Benji Stone, Flame Gang Uzi, King Brains, Snoopy Harvard, TS the Great, Yellow Tape, Gander Yao, Papa XO, Fat Beezy, Jay Reddy, the Blue Flame Gang, and CALI'S. Look, all of them is hard, no question. But a few rappers who stood out is definitely gonna be Flame Gang Uzi. Yeah, he's featured on a lot of tracks at the hundreds, and bruh, he can rap. He can give you detailed stories, keep you pulled in with the hooks. I'm just wondering where the solo tape is or the album, but y'all let me know if he has one out. I think he personally would drop some heat. Also, 25 is a big name that's been ringing bells around the city. I first heard of him off the Not a Regular Crab song he dropped a few years ago, and the approach was real clever. Bro got a snippet of his ops, basically shouting him out, saying he was dangerous, so he shouldn't fuck with him, and made a whole song out of it. But I tried to look up his channel and only came up with that one track and some songs that he's featured on. Bro, same thing, nigga, drop a tape. Capitalize off that No Jumper interview, because you definitely got people waiting to see what you're dropping next. In addition, it's Bino. When I first heard him on the No Pressure album, he had with new ops, so I guess that really don't count. And lastly, it's Cupo Leon. Hey, ride around town in the black Mercedes, with some exotic that'll drive you crazy. Glock 45, now you see I'm many. If you do me wrong, I'ma do you shady. Bruh's by far one of the best rappers coming out of hundreds right now. Scratch that. He's one of the best rappers coming out of the city. This nigga definitely stands out amongst his peers. First off, his flow is not what you would get from a typical LA rapper. Most of these niggas is dissing each other hoods, but bruh's just making good music without mentioning others. And when he does bang, he does it in a real clever way. Like with his track, Keep It 100. On top of that, this nigga's not looking like a bum, like a majority of these rappers do in these videos these days. So you gotta respect the flyness, it stands out. They had a lot of rappers coming out of the hundreds. I'm sure I missed some, but y'all let me know in the comments if I'm missing any, man. Let's get their music heard. Current state of the Rollin 100 Crips. When it comes to the current state of the Rollin 100 Crips, they stand as one of the most feared, respected, and hated gangs in Los Angeles. And with numerous stories about the brutality, like 100 Days, 100 Nights, intense gang warfares with the Hoovers, and several examples of extortion, it's safe to say this gang has a dangerous reputation. One thing I have to mention though, is due to Rollin 100's foundation, all the gangs stood as one. Meaning they looked out for each other, fought together, and even engaged in the same beefs. But recently, there's been a big shift in how they move, but basically each gang sticking to their own and politicking amongst themselves. So the solidarity isn't there anymore when it comes to their whole alliance. But with that being said though, this gang has continued to grow and thrive to the point to where their presence can be seen beyond California. They have subsets in Tennessee, Texas, New York, and New Orleans. But y'all let me know in the comments if I'm missing your state, man. Rep for your state. Anyways, that's it for the Rollin 100. Y'all got any crazy stories about these guys? Any close calls? Did I miss anything? Did I get anything wrong? Y'all let me know in the comments, man. Let's have a conversation about it. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you fuck with this video, or if you're part of the Danger Gang. Y'all stay safe or dangerous out there.